Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. I haven't done one of these in a few weeks because I've been away in the US. So it's just, pleasure to be back. Thank you for joining. Just drop in the chat. Where are you joining us from today? Whereabouts in the world are you? Where in the UK are you? If you're coming from the UK, it's just absolute honor to be here with you and to be able to be back delivering these webinars live. So where are you joining us from? Drop it in the chat box. Let's get the chat warmed up and get to know everyone. Good morning, Wales, beautiful, lovely Wales, Manchester, Preston, Surrey, amazing, Kenya, beautiful, Mary. London, oh wow, okay, Spain, Manchester, amazing, Manchester, I can see Manchester out my window. So welcome, good morning. I am going to share my screen and then let's get going. Okay, I'm going to assume everyone can see my screen. So let me just jump back so I can see the chat box with you all. Northumberland, one of the most beautiful places on the planet. Welcome from Northumberland. Okay, so welcome. Good morning, everyone. So I am not going to cover anything else in this webinar. We are talking about how to be a respected leader without working long hours and without kissing ass. So if this is not what you're here for, if this is not what you want to learn, then I would recommend you leave now because we're going to be laser focused on this. We've only got about 45 minutes. So for the rest of you who do want to achieve this, can I just get a yes in the chat box? Just drop a yes in that chat box and let me know that this is exactly what you want and what we're here for today. So I know that you are all busy managers, just like me. So I've packed as much as I can into the next. We're going to run for about 35 minutes and then we'll do some Q&A. So just stick around for that. And an unofficial contract, guys, here is for any of my webinars, any of my talks, if you've ever seen me on a stage, my promise to you is to give you every ounce of my energy, every inch of value. I will answer any question. There is no question that I will never answer in the next 30 to 40 minutes. All I need from you is to be as engaged in that chat box as possible. I know when you're on these webinars and we're across like a computer, it's so easy to just click over to the email tab, click over to your calendar, go on WhatsApp. I get it. I do the same. But all I need from you is 30 minutes. Okay, let's do this. So in order to become a respected leader without working long hours or kissing ass, you're going to need a plan. So you're going to need what I call a leadership level up matrix. This is going to be very clear and very personalized. And by the end of this session, you are going to have something that is going to look a little bit like this. So in your personalized leadership level up matrix, there are only 4 components. Leadership is messy. It is scary. It feels like a minefield. But I have spent the last couple of years really trying to distill exactly what we need to know in leadership versus just what the noise is. And these are the 4 really key components. So all of you will kind of recognize each one of these and how they play into your leadership role. And what you're going to get from today is one very clear action, one small takeaway for each of these components, and that will make up your leadership level up matrix, okay? And if you can begin to work on these things, just begin to take these small actions, you will eventually master leadership. And we never get to perfection with leadership. We never get to a place where we are completely perfect. We are continuously learning. But if these 4 actions are the ones that you start working on, you will already be head and shoulders above the rest. Now, as managers, we have a million plates to spin. We have to deal with time pressure, feeling like there is never enough time to work on the big picture because you are buried in the day-to-day. We work on accountability, so trying to get our team to take ownership of their work without us consistently having to step in and remind and micromanage. We have feedback, so being honest and empathetic all at the same time. And then the fun bit, when they don't take that feedback really well, we get conflict, and that in itself is really tough. And all of this is whilst doing our actual job. So the technical stuff, the things that we did generally before we had any of this management responsibility. And all of this is kind of on our plate, pressure, trying to figure it out while we have that quiet nagging question in the back of our mind, which is, am I good enough? Am I good enough at this job? When I got my first ever proper management role on the Harrods shop floor, I'd had some small supervisor roles in retail, etc. before then, but this was first full-time job out of uni. I didn't feel like I deserved a management position. I felt like even though I'd had all this different experience, I'd been, really pushing and trying to better myself, learning, I just didn't feel like I deserved that position. I didn't think I was good enough. And I look back now to Heather, God, it was 8 or 9 years ago. And I just want to say to her, you are good enough. I wasn't necessarily set up for success in any way. And if anyone's been sort of thrown and catapulted into a management position, you will understand exactly what I'm talking about here. We are so rarely set up for success. And we're constantly thinking, am I leading properly? Am I leading in the right way? You know, I feel like I'm expected to know all the answers, expected to deal with all this pressure, solve every single issue, all whilst just being pulled a million different ways, different meetings, hitting targets, firefighting, managing up. That's a big one. And honestly, we just weren't set up for success. And actually, so few managers were ever given any training. So the current stats are 15% of managers, only 15, ever get any formal training. And something that used to really bug me is I used to think that all of us managers, we had to have like charisma, or we had to, you know, like talk the talk, feel really confident. And I wasn't born with that. Like, I didn't have that at the beginning. I didn't have any of those things. But I started to learn across the years that you didn't actually have to be born with any of that to be a great leader, because leadership is a skill set. It requires tools, it requires frameworks, and it requires courage, a lot of courage, but it can be learned. It can be learned. And that's what we're going to go through today. So in today's session, I'm going to give you those 4 tools. That means you can too learn the skill set that it requires to smash your leadership role. You can learn it. You have to put in the work, but you can learn it. Okay. So today, here's where I need you to get your notebooks out if you haven't already. Now, I want to highlight the most important part of today, which is the little bit of brackets at the bottom. It's the most important part of my promise to you, because I see so many managers, and this happens a lot in, it doesn't even matter the type of company, to be honest, because whether you're in a small startup company or a huge corporate, there is so much pressure. And I think, especially when we first start out in these management roles, we think that success is working the most or being the busiest or, you know, like showing face as much as possible. But I promise you today, you don't have to be the one who is working the long hours, who is bending all of our values and kissing ass. We don't need to be doing these things. In fact, I learned the very hard way that it's actually the managers who don't do those things that gain the most respect. I used to work alongside a manager who, he was in a very similar position to me in corporate, managed a completely different team, but we would be on all like the leadership meetings together. And he was the guy who, on a Sunday, we'd be getting emails. At 9 p.m. every weekday, we'd be getting Slack messages. And I would see that and be like, shit, am I not doing this properly? Because I'm closing my laptop at 5:30 and actually relaxing at the weekend. And he was sending messages first thing in the morning, like 6 o'clock in the morning, to every single member of his team. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, am I just not doing this right? But over the few years that I was in that corporate role, and it wasn't a very long time, it became very clear to me that actually that was the kind of leadership that lost respect. And the kind of leadership that gained the respect was those of us who could switch off, who could value rest. So we just need to master 4 things. And a very quick introduction to myself, guys. Started my management job on the Harrods shop floor, then moved into, so I was the second member of staff at a small tech company, very small SaaS, software as a service company. And we built that company from the ground up. So when I joined in 2017, we had no investment. I was a second member of staff. And we grew that company from the ground up to 2 million in revenue. And then in 2021, we sold that company to Sage. So if anyone's been through the M&A process, it can be a really sticky one. But what it meant was, overnight, I went from being an ops director in a very small contained environment. So 30 people in the team, like this very kind of small, being an ops director didn't feel that, it didn't feel that huge. It felt like a great responsibility. But then overnight, I moved into an ops director role in a FTSE 100, managing 5 different teams. We had 11,000 employees in that company. We were global. It was just a huge different world. And I had to learn so fast. There was no room anymore for that lack of confidence. I had a choice. It was like fight or flight, and I had to make it work. And between now and then, I've seen it all. I've seen high-performing teams, disengaged teams, stressed-out managers, discrimination, HR complaints. I've had to let people go. And when I left to start my business in 2023, I started posting TikTok videos alongside running lots of leadership workshops inside of Sage. And when I left to start fresh leadership world. So I left in 2023, did a bit of traveling, and then founded the company properly last year. I just got to see it all. I got to see every single inch of the high performing teams, the ones who were really struggling. And since then, I have directly trained over 5,000 leaders. You guys are now part of that cohort. Worked with huge global brands like Sony Music, Abercrombie & Fitch, Amex, even the Ministry of Defense. So it's just my absolute honor today to be able to bring this framework directly to you. Okay, so 4 steps. These are the 4 components of your leadership level up matrix. And the very first one is mindset. Now, your mindset is where absolutely everything starts. How we feel going into certain situations, that courage that I was talking about. If you don't have this solid mindset, your mindset is almost like the foundation on which your house is going to be built. And if that mindset isn't solid, if it isn't strong, anything you try to build on top of that, any of the other tools and systems, are going to fall down. So the first thing we have to do in becoming a respected leader is really ensure that our mind is protected. And now there was one kind of key principle, key learning when it came to mindset that helped me to let go and helped me to feel a sense of courage. Now, so when I first started in corporate, and it kind of started before then, I would sit in these like big fancy meetings, boardrooms, glass, floor to ceiling glass windows. And I would sit there, and if anyone has experience of this, let me know in the chat. I would sit there and people throwing around all these acronyms, like the most obvious ones like KPIs, EOD, but even deeper than that, it would like LTV, CAC, God, there's so many, all these acronyms, right? And I'm sat there thinking, Heather, you're an ops director. You're supposed to know what this means. You're supposed to understand what's going on. But I didn't, and I was confused. And so one day I was sat in that meeting, lots of men sat around this boardroom table. It was a super scary environment. And I was like, guys, can I just stop you? I'm sorry, I have no idea what is going on. I don't know what you're talking about. Please, can you tell me what these acronyms mean? And everyone kind of laughed, not at me, but with me. And they were like, sorry, Heather, we do this. We just get into these motions. We do this all the time. It means LTV or something. We need to stop using these acronyms. And then I walked out of that meeting, and this was the most important part. I walked out of that meeting, and somebody else who was in there came up to me and said, thank you for asking that, because I felt the same, but I felt too silly to ask. Okay. And from that moment on, what I realized is, and you may have heard this one before in leadership, is that everyone is literally winging it. And I mean that with every inch of my head and heart. Every single person you see around those tables, you see in those Zoom meetings, is a human being with feelings, with anxieties, with worries and fears, and we are all winging it. And from that moment on, I decided to adopt what I now know as a growth mindset, which essentially means we don't care about being right, okay? We don't care about having the right answer. We only care about getting better. We only care about growth. And when I adopted that, it created such a solid foundation for my mind, because it meant that anytime I messed up, made a mistake, didn't understand something, felt silly, felt nervous or anxious, it just didn't matter, because I was never trying to be right or perfect in the first place. And I knew I needed to always focus on this idea of growth and not perfection. Because when we seek growth, we don't care about being perfect. We instead just figure out what learnings need to happen and what questions need to be asked. Where do we need to get more curious? And we lean into that learning, okay? And ultimately, we become way less scared of failure, which also creates this basis of like, sorry, I'm sat on my feet and I'm starting to go a bit numb. we stop creating this perception of failure, which ultimately means our team feels safe to fail as well. And that's what you may have heard the term psychological safety before. And on a very basic level, psychological safety just means our team and ourselves feel safe every single day to come up with new ideas, to fail, to say something in front of a room without the fear of being judged, vilified, or looking silly. Okay. And when we become less scared of that, and we show that in front of other people, when we show that we're willing to put ourselves out there and look silly and ask the questions that no one else dare ask, we create this psychological safety, okay, in ourselves and in our team. And I'm going to leave you with this. We trust people who say, I don't know, so much more than we trust those who seem to have all the answers. To become a trusted and therefore respected leader, we cannot chase the illusion of being perfect because it will work against us. We are human. Not knowing the answers is not silly. Perfection is silly because it is completely unattainable. Okay, perfection is fear. We have to let it go. Your action for this mindset section is seek growth. In what areas of your leadership today, so it's early in the day for most of us, how can we seek growth? What questions can we ask that others may be afraid to ask? A really clear distinction here, guys, is between perfection and excellence, okay? So perfection and excellence, you may think are the same thing. We're all reaching for these high standards, but there's a really clear difference. So perfection avoids criticism. It doesn't want to be criticized. Excellence invites criticism. Excellence says, I want to keep leveling up and keep leveling up so much that I always want to know where the next learning is. Okay, so we're aiming for excellence. We're never aiming for perfection. Cool. Conflict, the fun part of leadership. So this is obviously one of the most uncomfortable but important parts of leadership. Most of us avoid conflict like the plague. We sugarcoat feedback, we dance around difficult conversations, and a lot of this can be applied not only to our management inside work, but also just the leadership of ourselves and our life outside of work. So we sugarcoat difficult feedback. We dance around all these really difficult conversations. We say yes to things that we shouldn't say yes to. And we're doing it all in this effort to be nice. We have been taught from a very young age that to be nice, to be polite is the right way to behave. And in some ways it is, you know, be polite, be nice. However, we need to make a small distinction because being nice is not rocking the boat. It's making people feel good in the moment all the time. And in leadership, that can cause some real problems. Being nice might win you the short-term approval. So it's going to make people feel nice in the moment. We're going to win that short-term approval, get a nice little tick of approval. It will get a nice little tick of dopamine. But being nice is going to lose us that long-term respect. So I've got a story for you here. Go back to 2021. We were selling the company. We were selling Go Proposal to Sage. So we were going through this big mergers and acquisitions process. And if anyone's been through this process, so one of the key indicators of how valuable a company is, so when you go to sell the company to the big one, they'll decide how much it's worth. And one of the key indicators of that is how much key person dependency you have. And generally that key person is the founder. So I wasn't the founder. The founder was a guy called James, and we had a big dependency on him, meaning he was the face of our marketing. We built a big personal brand for him. He was our sales machine. He was our client, like he spoke to clients all the time. He was the reason that clients were coming in. So we had a big dependency on James. And obviously in the face of a bigger company, that devalues it because it means when we sell it and the founder leaves, the company's going to struggle to keep afloat. So we had to prove going through the sales process that the company wasn't entirely dependent on the founder. Okay, that's where I came in. So that's where the ops director role came in and was created because we needed a way to remove all these dependencies from James. So over the space of about a year, I went through this process where I was removing every system from James. I created this thing called Kill the King, the Kill the King process. It was a bit of fun. And we systemized, I created a system for every single aspect of the business. So marketing, onboarding the team, recruitment, product development, etc. And we systemized everything away from him. Then we get into the sales process and we have to prove that someone else inside the company can sell that company. So that was where I had to step up. We get into these boardrooms. So Sage's boardroom is at the top of the Shard, very fancy, like boardroom overlooking the whole of London. Beautiful. I walk into this room to go and present the business, to essentially convince them to buy this business. It was tens of millions of pounds, this deal, right? One of the biggest deals, no, the biggest deal I've ever been a part of, and probably will be for a very long time. And I was so nervous. So the night before, like pacing up and down the room, I practiced this presentation probably got 50 times back to front. I knew everything, every movement of my hands, like every tone of my voice. I'd practiced. I was so nervous. So I go into this presentation, really nervous, really scared, deliver it, and I'm coming out and I'm like, I think I've smashed that. I think I've actually done that really well. Then James, the founder, pulls me to the side and he goes, Heather, I need to give you some feedback. I'm like, oh. He said, you speak so fast. I'm really struggling to understand what you're saying, right? In that moment, I can't even tell you the feelings that I had. Like I think anger. I was so pissed off at him. I was like, I'm selling your bleeding company and you tell me this. And I was angry. I was annoyed. I was embarrassed. I was upset, just hurt. And in that moment, it did not feel nice. Like nice. There was no niceness in the room. It felt awful. But I went back to the hotel that evening and I just thought to myself, like, okay, we've got some feedback here, Heather. What do we do with it? So I start Googling, going on YouTube, listening to podcasts, all about how to slow down your speech, like how to present well, how to slow down your speech. And if you ask a therapist, guys, why you speak so fast in public settings, a therapist will say to you, you speak fast because you have no confidence in your voice. You think that you are boring people with what you're saying, and so you rush through it because you think these people don't want to listen to me, so get through it as quick as possible. Okay, and I went on this real journey. That was 2021. I went on this real journey for the next couple of years of understanding my voice and how I was using it and finding the real confidence in that voice. That journey eventually led to me signing up to some very small public speaking gigs, like 10, 20 people in the audience, to practice the things that I'd learned. It led me to going on a few small podcasts like years ago about operations just while I was employed. And it eventually led me to start posting on TikTok because I was like, if people internally at Sage want to learn about leadership and all these principles, let's start posting on TikTok. And long story short, that journey has led me to be here sat speaking to you about this exact thing today. And I've spoke to James since about that feedback and said to him, do you know how much that hurt me in the moment, but also how much growth I got from it over the years? And he said, yeah, of course. That's the reason I gave you the feedback, because you had so much potential and I could see that you needed to hear that in order to grow. And so in leadership, guys, niceness looks like sugar-coated feedback, avoiding conversations to keep the peace or because we feel bad for people. We don't want to hurt their feelings. But when we avoid this conflict, we avoid this difficult conversation, we get in the way of people's growth. And this is what leadership's all about. Leadership is just all about growing other people, like bringing everyone along on the journey with us. We can't, if let's say, and all of you on this webinar today will be in completely different positions. You will have different sizes of teams in different industries, different sizes of business. But let's say all of us have a shared goal and that we want to be great leaders. We want to do great by people. And we cannot build incredible businesses, amazing teams, departments, whatever they look like. We can't do that by ourselves. We have to bring our team along for the journey with us. And we have to commit to having these conversations so our team can continuously grow. If we don't have them, we're taking the easy path and we just have to deal with a bigger fallout later. So to earn respect, to become that truly respected leader, we have to make a big shift. We have to stop being nice and start being kind instead. Now, if you followed me, you will have likely heard this before because I drill it into absolutely every person I speak to and will continue to till the day I die. Because when we deliver feedback like this, it is having the courage to not be nice in the moment. It's not going to be nice, okay? It's going to hurt someone's feelings. But we have to have that courage to give clear, direct feedback, even when it's uncomfortable, because you care enough about this person's growth to put your feelings of discomfort to the side. So here's my challenge and action to you. Next time you are tempted to stay quiet or sugarcoat feedback, I want you to ask yourself, are you being nice or are you being kind? That is my action to you. Just ask yourself consistently, am I being nice or am I being kind? Nice leaders keep the peace. Kind leaders build respect over the long term. It is uncomfortable, but it will transform your leadership. And here's where I'm going to take a second to say, I've never done this before. I'm going to take a second to say, I launched a book on Tuesday, which is absolutely crazy to me. I've got a book coming out with Penguin, and I'm just going to take 2 seconds to show you it. I think you can see that on the side. I'll leave it up for just 2 minutes. The whole second chapter of this book is about how we stop being nice and start being kind. There's loads of practical insights in there of exactly how you can do this day to day. So head over to that link and pre-order the book if you really want to take this to the next level. Okay, I'll leave that link up for just another 10 seconds. The first chapter is all about emotional intelligence and how we put our emotions to the side. And the second chapter goes really deeply into stop being nice, start being kind. Okay, back to the webinar. Now, step 3 is prioritization. We have to learn how to prioritize like the top 1%. And I have had I've been really lucky actually over the last few years in that I have got to sit alongside some of the most high performing, incredible leaders, business builders, CEOs, FTSE 100 CEOs, the guy who built Microsoft Excel. I even got to work alongside him because he is the CTO at Sage. And I got to see what they prioritize and really how they spend their day. And I started putting these things into practice in my own work. So I'm going to try very quickly to show you how to prioritize like the top 1%, because we've only got 5 minutes here. But right now, too many of us are stuck prioritizing completely the wrong things in order to move forward. We fill our days with pointless tasks, okay? We say yes to meetings that don't need us. We schedule meetings that we don't need to be in. We volunteer to be part of projects just because we want to like oversee it, or we put approval layers in place just because we think we want to see, because we want that like extra layer of control. And all of this comes from actually a deep need to be people pleasers, because we are psychologically conditioned that, you know, once being a people pleaser, it was the difference between belonging to a tribe or being eaten by a bear. So we go to every meeting, we respond to every email really fast. It makes us a good A-star student. But in the 21st century, we can no longer be people pleasers. We have too many distractions. When we want to grow and just excel in our leadership career, we have to start saying no. And seeking this level of people pleasing will win us it will win us again the approval in the short term, but it will kill that long-term respect. Working for short-term approval always kills long-term respect. And if you want to be a leader that people respect, truly respect, we have to stop chasing that approval. So when we look at these top 1% of leaders, the ones we admire, they aren't trying to please everyone with how they spend their time. They know that their time is their single most valuable resource, and they are ruthless with it. They decline meetings that add no value. They do not take on tasks just to look busy or feel valuable. We have to, meetings are a big one. Whenever a manager comes to me and said, I'm really struggling with time, I go, show me your calendar. How many meetings have you got in every day? Because if it's more than even 1 or 2, you know, that's where you're losing. Because you've got to remember, guys, if you have a meeting in, let's say you've got a meeting at 10 a.m. You start at 9, you're having your lunch at 1, right? If you've got a meeting in at 10 a.m., you might as well write off the first hour of the day, because you're not going to get any deep focus working on the teamwork done, because you're just going to be answering your emails. Your head's kind of going to be in like, oh, well, I've got a meeting in 45 minutes anyway. You then finish that meeting. You've got this whole host of actions, checkups, etc. to do from that meeting. And before you know it, another couple of hours have gone. You go get yourself another coffee. You're not going to get into deep focus work before lunchtime. And so just by having like one meeting in the middle of a morning, it can completely throw you off. I know it does for me. And so we really have to protect our time in order to prioritize properly. So when we say yes too much, we think it makes us look good in the moment. It makes us look like this A-star student. But every time we do that, we trade this future credibility to be able to work on the things that are most important for this quick hit approval. That's what we're doing. So what really builds this respect over time in terms of prioritization is having the discipline to focus on what really matters. The leaders that people respect the most are not the busiest. They work smart. They know what drives their results, and they make those things their priority. And they are saying no ruthlessly. Saying no makes you a better leader for another reason. Your team are watching. They're taking cues from you. And if they see you running around saying yes to absolutely everything, burning yourself out, stressing yourself out, they think that that's the standard. They see you doing that and think that's what leadership is. They think that's the standard, and we know it's not. So the leaders who earn this respect in the long run aren't chasing that approval, and they're not taking that quick hit of say yes to the meeting. I always think, and this might be a little bit precious of me, but I always think that when people send me a meeting invite without an agenda and it's just like check-in or update or something like that, or any sort of meeting, I think to myself, they're stealing an hour. They are stealing an hour of my time, and I'm not allowing it, not letting it happen. Don't get me wrong, we need some meetings. We want to create bonds with the team, etc. But just think of it that way and you will really start to say no. So your action here, this is a fun one. How many meetings can you cancel? I usually say the rest of the week here, but it's a bank holiday in the UK. So how many meetings can you cancel next week? Go through your calendar. Even one would be a win. And because we're in management positions, it's a great opportunity to delegate it. Is there a member of your team that could go for you and take notes and bring them back? And it's an opportunity to empower them, like give them a project to take on, okay? And now start doing that every single week. Look at your calendar in that way. How do I cancel? How do I get rid of as much as possible? And then finally, guys, accountability. So accountability, I think, is one of the most misunderstood concepts in leadership. It's one of the most misunderstood concepts because we don't quite understand what accountability, or ownership is another word that we use. So people essentially doing what they say they're going to do, hitting deadlines. We don't quite understand what it is or how to get there. But very simply put, accountability is two things. It is you being an accountable person, you doing what you say you are going to do, your word being sacred. And two, holding your team accountable. So we hold our team accountable to hitting KPIs, and it means that like your team can be successful on paper. So when it comes to numbers, KPIs. So the first thing I want to do is talk to you about what successful, solid accountability looks like in your team. Most managers think that accountability, we confuse it for micromanagement, okay? We think it is keeping tabs on people, checking in really regularly, or leaving them alone and then waiting until something goes wrong and being like, right, where's this? We need to change everything. That's what we kind of think accountability looks like. But that's actually a control mechanism. It's our fear of a lack of control that kicks in and we go, must get oversight over this, must check in, must ask for deadline updates. But true accountability doesn't require any of that, because we want to create an environment where we don't have to micromanage, where people can take ownership of their work, their outcomes, their targets, and turn that kind of responsibility and accountability into real results. So accountability in your team, the way I see it is just three very clear things. So firstly is how we set the bar. So we have to set very clear expectations through KPIs, through qualitative success measures, through every sort of target or objective that our team has, their job descriptions, being as clear as possible on what you're expecting of them, because they can't own what they don't understand. If it's really confusing, they're running around day to day like, need to succeed here, need to succeed. 3 to 5 really clear success measures will go a long way. Then you need a really clear follow-up rhythm in place. So whether that's through one-on-ones, whether it's through like a monthly KPI meeting with the full team, you need a rhythm where you are able to have like a scorecard to see, here's exactly what's going well, here's what's not. Okay, the things that aren't, what are we changing this month to make sure that this won't go wrong again? The things that are going well, amazing. What have we done that we can do more of to make sure we continue this? And it needs to be a regular conversation, not just like a quick check-in on a Thursday. How's this project coming along? That's where micromanagement seeps in. And then finally, once you've laid those two foundations, is when we talk about reward, we need to make sure that we reward accountability or ownership and not just perfection. So we need to make sure that we reward not just hitting these KPIs, but the work that people do to get there. So if they're experimenting, trying new things, making sure that we actually praise them for that instead of just hitting the KPI. And then next, we need to talk about accountability in you. So in us, how do we become an accountable leader? Our team do as we do. They don't do as we say. They follow us. They do exactly what we do. And if we aren't accountable, they won't be either. So we have to always do what we say we're going to do. And that starts a step earlier in not overcommitting. So don't overcommit. This goes back to prioritization as well. Say no. Start saying no as much as you can, because you need to be able to commit 100% to the things you know are going to move the needle. Next, it might not be your fault, but it is your problem. This is true accountability in a human being. It's saying that when shit hits the fan, things go wrong, instead of being like, it's another team, it's the economy, it's the business, it's all this big change. Don't get me wrong, those things will be factors, and it's worth acknowledging them and acknowledging that those things are crap. But true leaders then go, and what are we doing about it? Okay, this crappy thing has happened. What are we doing now? How are we getting around it? How are we fixing it? Okay. Then lastly, accountability is seeking feedback and putting it into action. So don't just assume that because we are in a management position that we are the finished article, that we know everything. We have to consistently ask our team questions like, what's one thing you wish you could change about the way I manage you? Get 360 feedback, get feedback from your seniors. Look for it. Don't just wait for it to come to you. Feedback is a gift. Go and look for it, search for it. It's how you will get better. Whew, I feel like I need a breath now. That was fast, but we got through it. So if you can master these 4 components, guys, in 2025, you're already head and shoulders miles above the rest. So for a very quick, important recap, your mind is where everything starts. You have to go there first. Every other one of these tools is going to require courage, conflict, stop being nice and start being kind. Prioritization is all about saying no. The 1% of leaders are just saying no better than everyone else. And accountability is making sure that all of our team are doing what they say they're going to do, setting those clear expectations, following up in a regular meeting rhythm instead of just one-off, and then rewarding that ownership and not just perfection. Okay. And now this is where, for the next 5 minutes, I'm gonna sell you a really important product that we have built. So if you're not comfortable with being sold to, you're welcome to leave, because that is the end of the matrix. But I want to show you something that we've built, because what we've built as a product at Fresh Leadership World will literally install this framework inside of you. It takes everything 20 steps further. And some of you on this webinar might have actually been through this already. So if you're ready to take the next step and join me for 6 weeks on a transformational course to go from teammate to highly respected leader and just absolutely smash your management role out the park, you will have just been sent an email of how you can join us on Fresh Start. We have hundreds of managers have been through Fresh Start now. I was at a dinner yesterday with 20 entrepreneurs, and one of them came over to me and said his customer success manager had just been through it and how she was just transformed. Like he said, he'd seen such a huge difference in her, and he was just thanking me and saying, it's been incredible for her. She's really transformed in her leadership. So this course is called Fresh Start. We take everything you've learned today 20 steps further. We've got 6 modules, 34 lessons, and you can go through them all in your own time. But we have live sessions alongside them. So live Q&As with me. You can join whichever you want to. We also record them, so you don't have to join us live if you don't want to. And we have a community that you will get free access to for 90 days, where you are in a community with all the other managers doing this, telling each other your struggles, answering them. It's just really fun. We do in-person meetups, live meetups. We do it all. And if this isn't a way for you to become a better manager, you can come back to me and ask for your money back in 30 days. So I'm going to go through this really quickly. These are the 6 modules. So how to prioritize like the top 1%. We go through every single thing that all those greatest leaders are actually prioritizing. So things like systemization and how to do that, one-on-one systems and personal development, all the ins and outs of the exact ways they're doing it. We go through the 4-step difficult employee process. So everything from, sorry, I'm still sat on my feet. Everything from having those difficult conversations all the way through to what happens when we actually have to let someone go. We've got lots of empowering mindset modules in there, tracking your KPIs, how to actually set them, and then all the scripts and frameworks for each scenario when people are late to meetings, miss a deadline. We go through all those scripts of how you can hold your team accountable and make sure it doesn't happen again. There's so much more that I can't even begin to cover in this 1 minute. One of our last fresh starters, Emma, struggled with a disengaged team that really relied on her for everything. And after going through this course, she messaged me to say she actually won New Manager of the Year award at work. New Manager of the Week, sorry, not year. Now, this stuff works. It really works, guys. And I'm just so passionate about it that I can't do these webinars without mentioning it, because it is the best thing we've ever built. It's just the absolute best thing we've ever built, and it will really transform your leadership. Every part of the journey I have been on, all the important bits I have put into this course. So here's the pricing. This is what you'll get in the email. So 6 modules, 34 lessons. It's CPD accredited as well. So you will get an official CPD certificate that you can put on your CV, you can use on LinkedIn. You only have, I think it's, Levi's going to shout at me if I get this wrong, but I think it's 7 days. You've got 7 days to claim that 550 offer. And it's in your inbox now. One thing I would say, guys, is ask your boss to pay for this. Don't pay for it personally. There's a link in that email with a template of how to ask your boss. Show the initiative that you want to learn. That 550, it's a lot of money for people personally, for us personally, but it's not a lot of money to a business, because the amount of ROI that they get from not having to train you themselves will 10x that cost. So please make sure you ask your boss for this. Okay, thanks for sticking with me through that. So we're going to go into Q&A. So I'm here for you for, we've only got technically 5 minutes, but I can stay for a little bit longer. So please, right, I'm going to scroll up because I think we've got a couple of questions already. There we go. And the book, by the way, guys, the book is called Your Boss Era. Okay, we're using a new system. So this webinar jam, we used to use Zoom, but the problem with Zoom is it doesn't connect to a lot of things in the back end. So we really struggled. So we've had to move to a new system. So I will see what questions we've got. Right, I'm going to go into the Q&A section. Oh my God, we've got loads. Right, I'll start working through these. This is recorded, so it will get sent to you. So if you have to leave and your question doesn't get answered, I will stay until all the questions have been answered. I will be here. But if you can't stay for your question, go back to the recording because it will be on there. Okay, so the first question is a private one, so I won't say your name, but it says, how do you shift from having had nice conversations with someone to suddenly turning kind? I'm in the process of this, but it will be a change for them. So all of that fear exists inside your head only. And so it is always tough when you've been the nice person, you've been the people pleaser, and all of a sudden you commit. It's like in our personal life, like when we commit to all of a sudden setting boundaries, people are like, what's changed? Like, who is this person? Who is this new person? But all of that is for them to hold, you know. If you want to commit to being kind, it's all okay. It's going to take the courage. But the sooner you start doing it, the better. You don't have to ease people in. You can absolutely just start having that difficult feedback today and set some boundaries and just show them who you are now willing to commit to being. You could have a conversation with them and just say, look, in the past, I've feared giving difficult feedback, but now I really want to, because I can see now how much it's going to help us grow. So you're all going to start getting more feedback. I want you to do the same to me. And I really want to start embedding this within our culture. Okay. Next question is Erica. So what's the most effective way to ensure you're being a leader, e.g. chipping in and doing the work to support the team, but not sinking back into people pleaser habits? Where's the line? So I guess some of this depends on like the size of the team, because when I had a really small team, like when I was a marketing manager and I was just managing 2 other people, it's impossible. I'm not going to completely remove myself from the day-to-day. Like, it's impossible. I'm still going to be doing some of the work. I would say figure out the bits that move the needle in the team. And we do actually go through this in Fresh Start, because we have this like traffic light system for doing it, but I'll run you through it very quickly. So figure out what moves the needle in the team. Like, what are the big green? We need to do these every single week. This is part of our perfect repeatable week. Make sure those things are covered. And if you are required, you're working in the team, resources required to make sure those things are covered, then you're going to have to get stuck in. However, if you have a bigger team, so like when I started in the ops director role, so my wider team was 30, but I managed 5 managers. When you have that bigger team, you ideally shouldn't be doing any of the in. You should still be learning and still kind of getting feedback from people. And maybe every now and again you would practice it to like make sure your skills are up to scratch. but you don't want to be working in. That's where my line would be. So it's going to just depend on the size of the team and doing a bit of an audit across the team of, do they still need my resource, or is it more valuable for me to step away? What advice would you give about taking feedback and not becoming defensive? So I'm going to assume that you mean to you, Jasmine. So if you get given feedback and not become defensive. So here's what happens when you get feedback. And again, this is the first chapter in, and we go through it in Fresh Start, but it's the first chapter in Your Boss Era in the book, which is emotional intelligence. So there's 5 steps to emotional intelligence, but the first 2, and emotional intelligence, by the way, guys, we think it's one of those things that we're all born with, or like, you know, it's, we have to be born with it, born with the charisma, born with the emotional intelligence, but it's just a skill. Like, it's another skill that we can all learn. Do you know what I've just realized? Let me stop sharing the screen so you can, there you go. But it's a skill that we can all learn. And the first 2 steps are, firstly, being aware of your emotions. So when your emotions kick in, just being aware of them and knowing when those emotions come up. So what something triggers us, we're like, okay, I know that I'm triggered. I know that I'm angry. I know that I'm upset. I know that I'm excited. And then the second step is emotional regulation. So making sure that we regulate those emotions. So it's okay to feel them. It's okay if you feel defensive. It's okay if you feel angry, if you feel annoyed, if you feel upset, if you feel embarrassed, if you feel excited. All those things are okay. Like, emotions can't be labeled as good or bad. It's the next step that matters. So it's, will you let that anger dictate your response? Will you let that ego, that defensiveness, dictate how you respond? And so when I've felt those heightened sense of emotion before, when I've got feedback, I generally will say something like, okay, thank you. Can you just give me a bit of time to process this? And maybe it's just I need a night's sleep, or maybe I just need an hour, or even just 5 minutes in a meeting room to like cool off, or just think about it. And, you know, never send an email angry, ever. Anytime I've ever done that in my life, I look back on it and I'm like, that was the stupidest thing I've ever sent, because even just 20 minutes later, you don't necessarily feel the same. And so just become really aware of those emotions, respect the emotions, they're meant to be there, but don't let them dictate your response. So Jordan, how would you suggest creating these boundaries to say no in a company whose culture is back-to-back meetings, currently struggling with whole days or weeks blocked out with calls or feedback sessions and have no time for my own role? So yeah, you're not alone there, Jordan. It's a real problem in management. And it's why when I talk about prioritization, we don't need to talk about what we're doing. We need to talk about how to say no. We need to talk about not doing more or doing, adding things in. We need to talk about how are we getting rid? Like that's prioritization. There is no easy answer to this. There's no comfortable answer. But I would suggest having a conversation with your boss, with your manager, to just say, these are my top 3 priorities. So it may be a project, it might be the team, etc. These are my top 3 priorities. Would you agree? Like, they're the things that we want to get done over the next month, 3 months. These are my big priorities. And then say, and currently I'm getting invited to X amount of meetings a day or a week, meaning I cannot even begin to start on these priorities for the business. And whenever we speak to seniors, guys, always think about the shared goals. So always think about what is their goal. It usually is like a business goal or a personal goal for them. Like, they just may want to look good in front of their manager. And if they want, it could be like, if you want this project to be done by your team, I'm going to start saying no to meetings, and I need you to back me. I need you to be okay with that, because I want to work on these 3 priorities, but I need to say no to at least 10 of these meetings. You could ask for them to help you do it. And if there's friction there, then just say, okay, well, are you happy for these priorities to slip? Because something has to move, it's physically impossible. So something has to move. So that's how I'd do it. But like I said, you're not on your own with that. It is a worldwide problem, especially in corporate, because we just get used to having lots of meetings all the time. Next question from Jamie Lee is, I work in a smaller department and manage a team of 7. I do all sales, management and operations. My clients booking consultations and I can't reject them. I need to be available for my clients, but then my team also needs me, as does the business. How can I balance? So I think the issue there, Jamie Lee, is the fact that you are the one that's responsible for these. Is that needs delegating. So can you train someone up that's already there? If not, can you hire someone that could take the calls? If not, if it has to be you, then could you reduce the call time? Could you charge for the calls so that they're more effective? When we're in a management position, our client face time has to drop. And we have to train others to do that. So that's where I think the change needs to happen. So Jess said, what would you say to someone who's about to move into a senior exec role for the first time? Please bear in mind this person has only ever worked in content marketing and they're on a development plan to become chief of staff. Are there any books or you would recommend aside from the amazing ones? Yeah. So Fresh Start and Your Boss Era would be amazing. So moving into a senior exec role. So I'm going to assume they've not been in a management role. The books that have had the most impact on me, and they aren't traditional management books, the books that have had the most impact on me are Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday. So that book is one that ego plays a part in everything that we do. Like, we all have a huge ego and there is no one that is exempt from that. What matters is what we do with it. And in leadership, you see the leaders who have the big egos are the ones who everyone doesn't respect, they get left behind. They may get the big roles, but they're the ones who will be first up for redundancy because people are really annoyed at them all the time because they just don't learn anything. They're not willing to try anything new. They're not willing to be wrong. They're not willing to take feedback. And so ego is the enemy. And you have to surrender. Like, it'll teach you, you have to surrender. And sometimes you'll be sat in a meeting with loads of men and they'll say something and you're sat there and you're like, and it hurts your ego. And all you want to do is, it hurts your ego, but you just have to surrender. Like, it's hard to explain, but like, we have to choose our battles because otherwise we'll just burn ourselves out. And yeah, ego is the enemy was a really big one for me, and it will just help us to get further as well. It'll help us to get further in leadership. Any other books? So No Rules, The Culture of Reinvention, which was written by the Netflix co-founder and head of people, is a really good book as well for leadership. And then just keep learning, just always learning, consistently learning is the way forward. So Ella said, do you have any advice for managing outside of your direct reports? I work in sustainability and have to engage with people both above and below me across the whole business to work on projects and face competing priorities. And don't have the authority to make them prioritize my initiatives. I think the advice I would give there is when I speak to people, and I say this for when I speak to seniors, but it works with anyone, what is their goal? Think about that. Like, what are they trying to achieve? Don't make this about your priority or what you're trying to achieve, because they'll switch off. What are they trying to achieve? What is their big goal? And how does your initiative or what you're trying to get, how does that connect to them, to their goals? How does that help them get there? So that's just the switch I would make. I have a team member who's got a role but extremely rude. I made a big scene in front of the whole team and left a paid team building social hours before it finished. I'd invested 2 years of trying to make it work, but I know she's a good person, but her temper and pride are a big weakness, and people start to get bullied in the team by her. I've done casual meetings and one-on-ones about this, but then that happened. Any advice? So yes, this can't be casual anymore. In my opinion, that needs to be properly managed. So PIP, performance development improvement program, and then eventually letting this person go if they continue to do that to the team, because nothing will lose you great employees, guys, faster than them watching you tolerate a bad one. And if we continue to tolerate these people who treat others like crap, then you will lose the good employees and the bad ones will stay. So just manage it really formally. Maybe get help from HR if you've got HR people in your business. But when you go to HR, just make sure that you here's what I found with HR. Obviously, we all know in leadership, HR and leadership can feel like two competing forces, because we think HR is there for the business and leadership is sort of there to achieve these priorities and achieve these goals. And sometimes it can feel like we're banging heads. But what I've come to understand about HR is they aren't actually there to make a decision for you. They're there to advise you and protect the business, but they shouldn't be the one making the decision. And if you allow them to make the decision, or you expect them to make the decision, they're going to make the one that's the most risk averse, which is usually never letting someone go. So what you need to do is actually go and tell them your decision. So go and say, this person needs to go on a PIP because of X, Y, and Z, potentially to let them go, and give them really clear reasoning as to why they're holding the business back in bad ways. Because if you go to them and say, I think this has happened, I'm a bit unsure, but it feels uncomfortable, they're gonna fall on the most risk adverse version, and then that's where the headbanging comes in. So tell them your decision, be willing to own that decision and be accountable for that decision, and then take it to the team. So Vicky, any advice on how to manage your manager? I have a boomer manager and who's a board member and requests calls and meetings all the time. Yeah, it's a tough one. I've got a blog post on this. If you subscribe to my blog, it's inthemakingleadership.com. And just type in managing up, because we've got a whole blog post on how to manage upwards. But it's just boundaries, and it's tough and it's hard, but connecting it to their priorities, like what does that boomer manager care about? Is it being perceived in a certain way? Is it priorities, whatever? And connect it to that. And if they still resist, by the way, if they are so all consuming that it becomes really tough to be part of their team, it may be time for you to leave. And that's the difficult truth, is like when we are so suffocated. I did a column for the iNews this week, and it was someone had messaged in about having a really narcissistic boss, and a boss who just wouldn't see their point of view, was constantly, I think at like the work parties, they would just do speeches about themselves, like all this stuff. And the tough news is, like, there are incredible companies out there who will value and respect you. And if you are a high performer, or someone who wants to commit and who has a great work ethic and wants to achieve amazing things in work, if you're being held back by someone above you, get off their ship, and we can keep trying. I would say don't jump the ship immediately. Have the conversation, try to push, try to align the goals. But if you've been doing that for a year, 2 years, sometimes even longer, there's only one way, and that's to leave. But yeah, set the boundaries first, have the conversations first. Sorry, I've got a bit of a sniffly nose this morning. So Melissa says, hi, I manage a team of 45 and have 5 members of that team, which are my leadership team. How do I say no and direct colleagues to leadership without feeling like they don't have access to me? So a way that I did this is to just don't respond. Set a boundary, set a pace boundary. That's what it is. In that, don't respond on Slack, don't respond on email for like 48 hours to those requests. Because once you start, at the minute, you will be very accessible. So they will be coming to you because they know it's faster, they know it's easier, they know they can get things done quicker, they know you've got all the answers. So you kind of have to remove that and set a boundary in that. And also, just when you do, if you have to go back to them and say, I'm not the best person for this, your manager is, do it in a really empowering way for that manager. So let's say one of your managers in your team is called Sarah. Say, look, Sarah is actually the expert here. She's incredible at this and can help you really well. Can you make sure you go to her about it next time? Because it's going to be a bit of a change, but being not as accessible and using it as an opportunity to empower your leadership team. I struggle to understand the controversy between your guidances on delegation. So to delegate, we cannot expect what we cannot inspect yet. So we need a written down process start before handing over to communicate clear expectations, even if it's 3 bullet points, but also delegate with purpose and not communicate the outcome. How do you balance these? It's a great question. So it depends on if we're delegating a small task that's like I need to think of a small task. can you call a client, or can you speak to a client on Friday, or a big project? So everything, in my opinion, does need a process doc. But when we hand that process doc over, so let's say you're delegating a bigger project. Let's say, for example, something I spoke to Levi about this morning was we need to set up the Q&As in the community for the next 6 weeks. So making sure that we've got all those times in the community. We need a process doc for that, because we need like a cover photo. We need to say how long it is, what the description is, what time of week we do it. Like, there's loads of things that kind of aren't movable. So I would delegate that with the purpose. So say, it's my cuckoo clock again. So would say something along the lines of, if you can hear it, it's a little bird chirping in the background. So I'd say something along the lines of, every one of our clients inside the community, inside Fresh Start, we want to make sure that they all get the opportunity to attend these live sessions in different time zones. We want to make them feel part of our movement. We want to make them feel part of something. The task is then, please can you make sure that we have the next 6 weeks worth of live Q&A sessions set up so that they can schedule them. Here's the process doc. So here's the thing that I have set up. However, and that would be like a Notion page with 4 or 5 bullet points. However, Levi now owns that process doc. So when she's the expert in this. Like, Levi set up all this tech for me. She set up our community. She is literally 10 times better at any of this than I could ever be. So she actually now owns that process, and she has full autonomy over the how we deliver that. So she may come back to me and say, why are we doing it at 9 a.m. on a Thursday? We can't, that really cuts off anyone in America being able to do it. She might say, why are we hosting our community on Kajabi when it doesn't connect with anything? So why are we hosting webinars on Zoom when we can't automate it to send everyone the emails afterwards? She may say, because she is also a marketing expert, she may say to me, why have you created this header graphic? It makes no sense. We need to change it. Why don't we do specialized topics for each one of those? And so I don't know if I'm answering your question very well here, but if it's like a bigger thing that has a process doc, we do need that outline, because we need to learn from everyone that's done it before. We need like a standard that is set so that I can then go back and check. Maybe every 6 months, I would just be like, how's the process of the live Q&As coming along? And we've got a standard for that I can inspect and check and say, okay, that checklist is done. But Levi has full autonomy over the how, over making that work and making that happen. If it's something smaller, so if it's just like can you speak to this client? I would still always delegate with purpose. I would still always say, look, this is a really key client for us. They're really important. And I need to make sure that they feel welcomed inside of, I don't know, if we've just brought them on for consultancy projects. We need to make sure they feel welcomed into our world. Can you speak to them? Can you welcome them? And I don't have a process for that. It's also just something that's brand new. And I'll leave that to Levi. However she wants to do that is possible. But yeah, I appreciate, Lise, does feel a little bit contradicting, but it's also a very complex topic. Any specific piece of advice for a first-time manager or former peers who are resistant to my new role? So similar to what we spoke about above, Beth, with turning from being nice to being kind. This is the kind of stuff that it's more of a mental block. It's more of a block that exists up here. And so when you think about that resistance to your new role, is there real resistance? And if there is, and we'll talk about that in a sec. So if there is real resistance, as in if people complaining or people coming to you and saying you don't think you deserve the role, why are you in the role? I'm not sure you should be there. If that's happening, then we can deal with all that separate. I'll talk about that in a sec. But if none of that has actually transpired and a lot of this exists, maybe it's just a feeling or a thought process or imposter syndrome even, or you're just worried that these are the feelings that are coming across. It's the work for you to do. Now, if you do think that that's happening and there is kind of real practical resistance, a step that I've made in the past, because one of the sort of the most transformative parts of my management career was I went from peer to manager. So when Go Proposal, I was in the marketing team and then went into marketing manager. And all of a sudden I had to manage people who would be my friends, and we'd been on nights out and I was in the group chat, and, overnight I had to be, not that I had to be a different person or show up differently. There was just some principles of work that I had to now use that felt a bit awkward and felt a bit difficult and a bit sticky. So I just had a conversation with each person to firstly acknowledge those feelings and ask them to bring any feelings. So, is there anything that feels strange to you? Let's talk about it. But then to just end with real strength and I would say something along the lines of, I've been put in this position because I can really help you achieve what you're looking to achieve. And this is not I'm the boss and I manage you and tell you what to do. You are the expert in your role. I really am grateful and appreciate everything that you do. And we are working together to get the best out of both of us. I can help you achieve your goals, and you are a huge asset to this team, and we're going to do it together. And so just having sort of that transitional conversation to say, this is who I'm showing up as now, but it's going to benefit the both of us. Again, I've got a blog post on that on the blog. If you want to go search it up, I think it's called I went from mate to manager. What needs to change? I think that's what it's called. The people I manage are older than me, and that holds me back. How do I remove that concern? So this will come through privately. So if we manage people that are older than us, I got asked this question on stage yesterday. It took me a long time to realize this, but when I finally realized it, it changed a lot for me. Whatever your biggest vulnerability is probably your biggest superpower in front of other people. So whilst ever we feel, maybe it's imposter syndrome, or maybe it's just nervousness or unsureness, or that kind of respect your elders thing, whatever we feel about that around being a younger person, other people will see as a huge strength. So for example, we need diversity of opinion and thought and age and race and sex and gender and everything and every part of business. And there is benefits to both. So people who are older have huge benefits of being in the business. People who are younger have huge benefits of being in the business. And I'd have a very similar conversation as with the friend transition, which is get any feelings out. So, this may feel a bit awkward, it may feel a bit sticky, and I want to be honest with you in that I feel a little bit of awkwardness around being younger. And usually at that point, the person who's older will be like, don't be silly, like this is amazing, you're great, you're amazing, because it is a superpower of yours. And then just say the same thing. So, this is not about me versus you. I'm not here to boss you around. I'm here for both of our shared goals to be achieved, and I can help you do that. I know how much value you bring to the team. I know how much of an expert you are, and I'm really excited to bring that out of you together. I'm excited to see that and continue to nurture that with you and alongside you. So just having that transitional conversation, because it can be great. It can be great. As a family member in a family-run business and the director of a small team, how can I set clear boundaries and expectations when my team knows I have a deep personal stake in the business? How do I avoid being the fallback for others' poor planning or mistakes while still getting the right turn as a leader? Do you know this is really tough being a family member in a family-run business? So my mum runs an e-commerce business back in Doncaster, where I'm from. She sells furniture. And my brother works inside that business. So my mum and dad work there, and my brother. And I think they've got like 60 members of staff. So it's a good sized business. But my brother works inside of it, and he speaks to me a lot about these feelings, about, like he tries really hard. He works his absolute little butt off, and he puts every ounce of his energy into it. But he sometimes feels like other people, like he almost has to work twice as hard because he doesn't want other people to look at him and think he's just getting given things and given special rewards. And I think actually my mum holds him back a little bit because she's also worried about that. She's worried about the optics of it, and she doesn't want to maybe promote him because people might think it's unfair, etc. And honestly, there is kind of no solve other than saying the same thing again, which is a lot of this just exists up here. And make sure we're aware of bias. So be very aware of bias. Bring in external people to run the interviews, bring in external people to mentor and coach, and make sure we're really aware of bias. So just educate yourself on how bias shows up in the workplace. But other than that, we just have to work to remove it, because people may think those things. People may look at us in certain ways, but ultimately, what can we do about it? Do you know what I mean? Apart from leaving and go and work somewhere else, what can we do about it? And we know that you care, and you care about your family business. And so it's just more of like a mental barrier that you're going to have to, you've got a choice, essentially. You choose to let it impact you and the way that you work for a long time, or you just go, screw it. I'm trying my best. I'm putting in every ounce of energy. I deserve to be here as much as anyone else. And so, and as long as we continue to respect others and grow others and be aware of all that bias, go for it. Interested in the balance between visibility and accessibility. So this is a private one. Open door policy versus protecting own time. Head teacher of a large secondary school for context. So I actually think an open door policy is one of the worst things we've ever been taught in management. I don't think they work, because it's kind of like a reverse micromanagement. And the biggest problem with so these are my two problems with an open door policy. One, it is really distracting. So it's like a really distracting thing to have people consistently, and whether that's open door physically in an office, or just like people can ring you at any point on Slack, people can message you at any point on Slack. It's really distracting, and you've got an incredibly big, important job to be doing, especially as a teacher of a school, head teacher of a school. Like, you've got kids' wellness to literally be in your hands. You can't, and I know that for the sake of the kids, for the sake of the parents, for the sake of all the rest of the teachers, you can't be being distracted all the time. You have to be prioritizing, working on important things behind the scenes. But the second reason an open door policy doesn't work is that it can sometimes be a bit of an excuse for managers to not do proper one-on-ones, because we'll say things like, my door is always open, but then we avoid the conversations that really need to happen because we think they're happening, but actually we never talk about the difficult stuff. We never dig really deep. We never get into the emotions. We maybe still have like yearly appraisals, but what would be so much better than an open door policy is saying you could have like power hours with the teachers. You could have like, like hour sessions where they have to bring their most difficult questions or their most awkward questions, and you all sit around and listen to them. You could have like 30-minute one-on-ones with them I don't know how many teachers you have, so it could be every 2 weeks or every month, depending on what's feasible. But just making sure that instead of that open door policy and being accessible all the time, you are accessible and you are willing to answer the questions and you're there for them, but it is during a time where you decide the hours and they get a really like personalized sense of accessibility. So that's what I do. Question from Jade. How do we reduce meetings in a remote working environment? Are there better ways to manage this? How do we politely but firmly keep meetings on task and reduce time? A 30-minute meeting obviously means 20 minutes of chat and 10 minutes of action, but a work from home environment, there's a 20 minutes and the only opportunity for team bonding and water cooler time. Yeah, so it's just a judgment call with this. It depends how many meetings you have. So again, similar to the answer to the question above, like I would make space for the social meetings. So it could be like once a week. Like I know my partner's work, they're mostly remote, and they have a Friday, I think it's at like 3 p.m. They have a Friday social meeting where everyone comes together, and I think they share something like a win or whatever, and they just do like a 45-minute chat and laugh, and then they all sign off after it. And so you make that social still happen, but make it intentional. And then you can keep the sessions really short and like sweet and to the point is what I would say. Jennifer, value everything you say, but I work in the NHS. Yeah, I get this a lot, Jennifer. As a ward manager, and wish this kind of training was available for everyone because I have a very unsupportive team above me. Yeah, it is really tough. Who set unrealistic timeframes and workload. I think the double tough bit that you have there, Jennifer, is, working in the NHS, you're going to have such insane amounts of pressure, and just, I guess, thank you for everything you do, because I don't know how you guys do it. And as someone who has had many family members in hospital and recently just visited my auntie in hospital after, God, my eyes are welling up, but after I visit my auntie just a couple of weeks ago, and she's really ill. And just seeing the wards and how it's such a high stress environment. And, you've got people who are like so ill and unable to get the care that they need because it's just so overrun. And so thank you. The NHS is amazing. You saved my mum's life about 5 years ago. She got sepsis, and quick work saved her life. So yeah, just thank you. So they pass down huge work projects they do not want to do. I manage a team of 50, wow, and always shut down when I ask for support. New manager, just made it to 1 year and really struggled. Any advice? It's a really tough, honestly, I think you work in one of the toughest environments, and I hope you know that, and I hope you give yourself a lot of kudos for that, because I don't think it's easy, and I don't know if I even have the right answer, because it's such a huge job. I guess, like, what I would say to any, we've spoken about this a couple of times now, but when speaking to seniors, is there a way, again, that you can connect those requests to their priorities? So when you ask for support, and we shouldn't have to do this, but it can just be a way to cut through the noise, is when we ask for support, it's like, instead of just saying, I need help, can you give it to me? Which people should respond to, but sadly they don't always. It's what is the goal that they're trying to achieve, and how can you connect it to that? That's all I can say there. But yeah, sounds really blooming tough. Okay, last question is a private one. So one of the team members disrespects me at every turn. How does one deal with being new in a leadership as a female, but a colleague under me, male, has been there 10 years and been threatened because the former director was seeing if he was fit for this part of the job that I now have? Okay, so you've got you and this guy who kind of were both going for the role, and you've got it. He is a doer, doesn't want to put in any more initiative unless he gets paid manager wage. He's not a manager level. He's rude and disrespectful, and it's getting worse. I've now taken work away from him, so we'll get it done, but he just copies me into everything and says no the majority of the time. This is a really difficult, toxic employee, and they just, do you have a HR department? They need managing, they need performance managing properly. And maybe a mediated conversation with HR in the room as well, because they will bring everyone down. And yeah, they need properly managing. So performance management, this is the 4-step difficult employee process. Difficult conversations all the time, so make sure you've had a really clear conversation with him. Performance management. What have I missed? Oh, accountability. So making sure it's you first. That's the very first step. So making sure it's not actually you. Saying to yourself, what could I have done to create this scenario? We always have to take that accountability first. Then have the difficult conversation, and don't miss this step. Don't skip this step. Have you sat down with him and said, what you're doing is so disruptive. If you don't stop this, it's going to be taken more formal. Why are you doing it? What's happening? What's going on? Let's talk about it. Let's try and sort it out. Because if we don't, we're going to have to formalize this, and you are at risk of losing your job. Then performance management, and then potentially letting that person go. Cool. Okay. So cool. Okay, just jumped over to the chat. Lots of thank yous. Taking some good notes. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you. Okay, just thank you so much, guys. You're still here. We've run over by about half an hour, but Q&A I will always stay for. So just a huge thank you for your time. Please check your emails. I'd love to see some of you inside Fresh Start. I would love to see some of you inside of Fresh Start. Like I said, it's the most incredible management transformation you'll go on, and it would be an absolute honor to see you inside there. But thanks for joining us today. And hopefully I'll see you again soon. You know where I am. If you follow me on Instagram, TikTok, anything, or newsletter, I manage my inbox. I have help with it, but I will see it all. So just drop me an email if ever you need anything. Okay. Thank you so much all. Bye.